Over a year has passed since a Ukrainian civilian plane was shot down in Tehran, killing 176 people on board. Iran said it targeted the jet, mistaking it for a U.S. threat. Well, now international investigators are looking to keep airways safe in conflict zones. Liz Palmer reports.
First, there was the fireball, caught on a mobile phone just before dawn. Then, in the light of day, the wreckage strewn across fields in an outer suburb of Tehran.
Clearly, this is an impact crater behind me, another one over there, but they're empty.
Iran cleared away the debris and then took another 3 days before a Revolutionary Guards commander admitted that 2 of its missiles had shot down the plane by mistake, killing everyone on board. For the families of the victims, first came shock and then grief. And then the question, what was the plane doing there in the first place? Iran and the U.S. were on the brink of war. Only hours before, Iran had fired missiles at American bases in neighboring Iraq. The whole world was holding its breath, waiting to see if America would retaliate. The U.S. Federal Aviation Administration ordered all American planes to avoid the area, which should have been a huge red flag. Some international airlines took notice and diverted their flights. But Ukrainian airlines and 7 others did not. In all, 9 planes took off from Tehran's airport that morning.
What pilot in his or her right mind would have been in that airspace at that time?
Air crash investigator Andrew Blackie says, in fact, pilots focus on practicalities, not geopolitics.
You're provided with information, often pages and pages of information about navigation aids that aren't working. Often there are pages of warnings about areas you're not supposed to fly over. But it's very difficult for them to then think of these more strategic risks.
It's up to a country to close its own airspace if there's danger, but especially if there's military involved, that rarely happens, with tragic consequences. Malaysian Airlines Flight 17 was blown out of the sky in 2014 by Russian-backed militias over a civil war zone in Ukraine.
It was in the confusion of combat that the Vincennes fired on the airliner. This was an accident waiting to happen.
In 1988, with hostilities building in the Persian Gulf, an American warship, the Vincennes, shot down Iran Air 655. And just 5 years earlier, during the Cold War, a Soviet warplane shot down Korean Air 007 after it strayed off course.
Among the many unanswered questions is why.
So should the decision to close airspace fall to a higher authority? Ralph Goodale headed up the Canadian inquiry into the Ukrainian crash.
Do you ever see the creation of a supranational body that could close airspace?
Well, there are a lot of people that think that would be a good idea. The problem is you run smack into the sovereignty of states.
In other words, no country would accept having its airspace shut down by an outside power. The truth is, there is no way to make the skies over war zones 100% safe. But, says Goodale, a system of international information sharing would help, one that let countries formally warn each other and their airlines of common danger.
If you fail to do that, if you balk or fall short, then the reality is the risk continues, and in future, this will happen again.
Elizabeth Palmer, CBS News, London.